All right, everyone. So moving forward to the next session, the topic is Predict, Prevent, Perform, the AI Edge in Observability. This will be conducted by Mr. Saurabh Kothari, Senior Enterprise Solutions Engineer, DataDog. Let me give a small brief about Sir. Mr. Saurabh is an enterprise solution engineer with expertise in cloud technologies, data centers, server virtualization, DevOps, infrastructure as code, FinOps, and observability. He is dedicated to solving customer challenges by delivering impactful solutions and collaborating with the cross-functional teams. With experience in technical support, professional services, customer success, and technical sales, Mr. Saurabh stays current with emerging technologies through ongoing learning and experimentation. With this, may we invite them on stage with some energy, everyone, please.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody is doing well. I see a lot of happy faces. All right, perfect. As the theme of the event is around DevOps, right? The most important aspect of having a DevOps pipeline is to push something in production. The reason you would push something in production is, of course, to run business, right? So that's the intent of running any kind of DevOps pipelines or any kind of infrastructure, applications, etc. Has anybody seen this ambiguous cylinder illusion? When we look at a cylindrical object as a reflection in the mirror, we rarely see it as a circular or a cylindrical object. Now, this is all about perspective, right? In simple words or simple ways, anybody seen mirage, optical illusion, right? So we look at something from a different perspective than they're supposed to look at, right? Now, this is exactly true even in engineering, where we look at our code, we look at our infrastructure, we look at our environment in a very different manner than how they are reacting to issues or problems. With that, a short introduction. I have been in the industry for about a decade and a half, mostly in the observability space, covering large enterprises, government sectors, and helping them realize the true value of observability. Has anyone experienced missing out on an important alert in their engineering lives, right? Show of hands, a lot of people. I'm pretty sure not every time you would end up losing millions, but you would at least lose sleep, right? Or peace for that day. Now, a recent study shows that for Amazon, the likes of Amazon.com, 100 millisecond latency can cause 1% sales revenue, a hit on sales revenue basically. Now that is how important it becomes to really identify key issues even before they trigger such outages. Why it is complex to really understand and reduce this alert noise, right? Now when we all started our engineering lives, it was centered probably around bare metals or virtual machines, right? Or somebody may have started with, let's say, containers. But the overall journey of applications in the last 3 decades, 4 decades has been consistently around multiple compute units. So if you look at the chart on the left-hand side, you would look at how the tech stack has evolved. You have multiple vendors or you have multiple kinds of solution route. You may have enterprise solutions, you may have open source solutions that you're kind of playing with, or you may have some other kind of solutions, homegrown solutions for that matter. The place where you are going to run those solutions have also evolved. From bare metals to virtual machines, to containers, to now serverless infrastructure, right? The list goes on. And in most of your cases, there could be a mixture of all put together. Containers, serverless, bare metal, virtual machine, right? Now, when you look at all of these moving pieces, you're really caring about the business, right? Now that is where the release frequency comes into the play. That is where your CI/CD pipeline comes into the play. How many of us are participating in weekly releases, quarterly releases, if I may say daily releases, right? Most of them are in daily releases, right? Now, you would understand with this daily release, the complexity is even higher in terms of understanding how this code change would behave in my system. And of course, a lot of people are involved in ensuring that line of code does not impact adversely. Back in the day, it was system administration, sysops. Developers came in, then we had DevOps, now we have DevSecOps. So XOps is something that will continue to evolve, right? So that's the complexity that everybody is participating today. Now, how does DataDog really solve this complexity? DataDog at the heart solves the complexity by ingesting various different parameters across your tech stack. Now, I'm not talking about just a Java code or a Python code, right? I'm also talking about all of the compute units that you are currently working with. Your serverless, your Kubernetes clusters, your virtual machines, your bare metals, et cetera, et cetera. Then you may have databases. Then you may have CI/CD pipelines. Then you may have your LLM-based applications. Anybody who's currently working on LLM-based applications, observability? Perfect. Now, if you combine all of this, the amount of data is huge, right? And data has been kind of the theme of the day, right? A lot of speakers have talked about data. Now, how do we make sense of data, right? Data could be structured, unstructured. Data could come from a Python process. Data could come from a Docker container. Data can come from my pipeline, right? It could be Jenkins, it could be GitLab, it could be any other platform for that matter. Now, what Datadog does is it acts as a single source of truth, which basically means you have a singular platform, and that platform is basically your source of truth for your entire observability journey. The chart that you're seeing here basically comprises of all the verticals that Datadog can help you with, be it infrastructure monitoring, be it application performance monitoring, be it log management, be it shifting left into CI/CD observability, developer experience, security is one of the niches that Datadog is solving, whether it is cloud security posture management, whether it is application performance based security, workload security, API security, and whatnot, right? And there's also an aspect of cost optimization. Datadog can also help you understand how much you're spending on, let's say, your multiple clouds that you're running your infrastructure or applications on, and how you can bring that cost down by ensuring the performance is not impacted, right? Now, that's the essence, that's the sweet spot that you would get with a single platform where you're able to ingest all of this different kind of data, whether it is cost data, whether it is performance data, whether it is DB queries, whether it is a single line of code that you would like to optimize, right? That is where Datadog really shines. Now, when you look at it, what is the value that you're deriving at the end of the day, right? Now, when you have different sources of information, whether it is, as I said, cloud, application stack, it could be, let's say, a Python process, it could be a database that you're running, it could be your CI/CD pipelines, as I said earlier, everything is on a common platform. Now, the correlation and the context that I think my fellow speakers were also mentioning about is something that comes natural to us, right? Because we understand the source of data, we also understand how this data is correlated with other set of data coming from different sources. A DB query, how does it relate to latency in your application? Is something that Datadog can do natively and naturally. And of course, the way you would expect to use the platform has to be easy, right? It has to be as easy as using a phone, right? That is where we have focused solely on how do we improve the user experience by bringing in natural language queries onto the platform. So now we do have capabilities of you just writing, hey, can you please show me all the errors that have occurred between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. Show me all the errors that have impacted this particular service with error code 500 and above. Right? All of these natural language based capabilities are also in the product. And of course, with the breadth of technology that Datadog touches, we currently support more than 900 plus integrations. Now, these could be your hyperscalers, these could be your network devices, these could be your on-prem servers, these could be your cloud bills that you're looking to get assistance on from an optimization perspective. These could be security solutions. These could be acting as like a cloud SIM, right, a security SIM solution. So the breadth of technology is something that we proudly present in the context of helping you solve real business problems. And of course, from an ease of use perspective, the idea should not be you clicking multiple areas in the product. The product should be intelligent enough to really give you some key insights. People who are doing daily releases, right? Do you also track versions? Do you have version tracking, right? With version tracking, you would probably be identifying what are the key bottlenecks if a new version has created in my application, right? That is something that Datadog understands naturally because it can track versions for you natively. Any code change that you're doing, it is able to pick what is that new version, how is it different than the previous version, and can create an entire RC on the basis of that. And of course, security can no longer be kept outside the observability realm. It has to be tightly stitched with your current observability data. That is where we also have the ability to block malicious attacks like DDoS, SQL injection, to name a few, in real time. That is something that Datadog can also help you solve those critical business problems which are kind of outside the realm of observability in most of the organizations today. However, from an observability perspective, of course, the three pillars of observability without any guesses, metrics, logs, and traces. Right? Everybody agrees with me. These are the primary pillars of observability. However, the era in which we are currently living is the era of agentic AI. Right? Everybody is trying to look at contextualizing correlation of information naturally and automatically. Right? You really don't want to invest time and attention in looking at discrete sources of information from 4 different dashboards. That is not how you are expecting a platform to function. On top of these golden signals, you have alerting, you have monitoring capabilities, you have cost that is associated to the overall cost of operations that you're running. And of course, with this, AI-ops becomes a natural fit. Right? With AI-ops, the whole idea is that a system should be able to help me understand the trends, should also be able to highlight those trends early on. Let's say there is a trend of a rudimentary metric CPU, increasing from 5% to 25% in 10-minute window. That's an anomaly, right? You may have alerting solutions telling you that, hey, unless it hits 50%, you're all set, right? But the trend shows that the last 10 minutes itself, the CPU has spiked to 5x. Is that a cause to worry, or it's not a cause to worry? The system will handle that part for you. Now, because we have a single data platform, we are uniquely positioned to solve this problem of discrete sources of data information, right? And I'll show you how as well. Now, with Datadog AIOps, we are able to present the new 3 pillars in terms of, or in the era of agentic AI. Observe, orient, and act. The remediation part is of utmost importance. There is no sense if a system is able to give me timely alert if I have to spend 1 hour to remediate it, or if I have to put another hour to fix a problem, or to not fix a problem, or rather prevent a problem, right? Now, in Datadog, we have recently announced the launch of Bits SRE, which is our autonomous agent, which is running on top of the platform. So as a consumer, you are continuing to use your platform the way you were. Datadog's intelligence now is able to ensure it is operationally aware. When I say operationally aware, service A belongs to Saurabh, service B belongs to somebody else. If in case there is a problem in service A, they understand the ownership lies with Saurabh, and hence they are able to pinpoint or do an incident management, keeping the person in loop. That is operationally aware. In terms of context, in terms of organization, it has the entire flow to really ensure all of your business logic, right? Now that is something which I also find lacking in the technology world today. The business logic is isolated with tech logic, right? And that is something what we are trying to bridge the gap today in terms of bringing your business logic not only from an organization perspective, not only from an operational perspective, but also from a remediation perspective. Now, from the life cycle of autonomous agents or agentic AI, you have an SRE, an agentic SRE. You also have a security analyst, which will look at all the security loopholes or gaps that may affect your application automatically. And you also have a dev agent, which is part of your code, which can help you optimize, which can give you predictive analysis on how to improve your code. Let's say there was a bug that was found. DataDog can today suggest remediation. It can help also create pull request or can also help you commit those code in production. Now this is a snippet, a real life scenario. Everybody does some level of online engagements, right? Shopping, ordering stuff. How many of you have seen this problem? Something went wrong. Show of hands. A lot of us, like almost everyone. Now this is very important to understand, right? Like as a consumer, if I see it on A platform, I may move to B platform at that very given point in time. After a couple of days, if I come back to the same platform, I see the same error, I probably would never be using that application again, right? So that is how important it becomes to really look at the business from your user lens. This is what your users are looking at, all of the platforms that you are powering today as tech leaders. Now what Datadog would essentially start is, it would start to look at all the building blocks of this application. Building blocks, servers, serverless infrastructure, containers, etc. It would then look at the building block of the code itself, what language you're running, what are the traces that it can identify, are there any traces which are relevant to that particular failure. So every failure would have a trace, right? It will start to look at that correlation, that at a given point in time, a user failed at checkout button. It will go and figure out your resources, your traces, and also identify any logs that it can monitor and build that context together. Now, within a particular trace, it can also look at if the impact of clicking a checkout button was significant or not. Was there an API 500 error that arose when the user was doing some level of activity? Now, it may not necessarily be checkout all the time. It could be adding stuff to cart. It could be looking at inventory. It could be just browsing your website, just like that, scrolling, right? If while scrolling, the frame did not load, that could also be a problem. Right? While launching an application, the application took more time to launch itself. That could also be sign of a poor user experience. So the idea is to really identify what your users are going through and really help you build strong use cases on top of it. With Watchdog, you have an automated RCA that is purpose-built for your business use cases. In case a version change triggered a problem, it can easily identify the trends because it understands historical data, it understands the new data that is coming in, and it can really bridge both and create those trend analysis. On top of it, it can also structure anomaly detection. How many of us have put in alerts in your systems? Everybody relies on alerts? Fantastic. How many of you receive emails or Teams channel messages or Slack channels based on the alerts? Perfect. And how many of us ignore most of those alerts? Fantastic. So even I have an inbox folder that comes, that is flooded with a lot of emails, right? Everybody must have created rules in their own Outlook or inboxes, right? So that is the reality, and that is what is the truth, ultimate truth, right? You only react to a problem when somebody calls, because that's how you understand that, okay, Now this is serious. Now everybody needs to go in a war room and try to fix problems. What we are trying to achieve is change that approach. If you receive an alert from the system, it better be serious and meaningful. Now, when I talk about alerts, right, there's a term called noise. Everybody has heard of the term noise in our industry, right? Now, the noise is created by a lot of systems. And the reason that happens is, when you started a mini project, the project grew multifold in about year and a half times. You had multiple different sources of information. You started with, let's say, just a Node.js service. You expanded it. Now you want a data science project. You now have Python in the fold. You have multiple databases, right? And that's how you basically grow your tech stack. That's a natural evolution, right? What we basically try to do is also absorb this noise. There are tons of events that are getting created, or rather generated, across your infrastructure. What we want to do is absorb all the noise, cut to the chase, and also do event-based correlation now. Not just the database correlation, but event-based correlation across your multiple platforms. So now, if you look at or visualize, DataDog sits right on top and acts as a source of truth, and that is exactly how I started introducing DataDog to you, acting as a source of truth. Now, in terms of, again, identifying multiple sources of information and creating a structure where you can reduce noise, you can also identify, or rather pinpoint, if the system identified a particular event which was cause of worry, it can give you more metadata information basis on the same. What was the source of the event? Where did it generate from? Who is managing that particular source? Which team is responsible, right? So you basically get an organizational factor on the screen to look at, or rather react. You would, of course, want alerting systems to function perfectly well, right? But with alerting, right, you basically ask a few questions, right? At least when I'm troubleshooting or I'm in a troubleshooting call with any of my customers, the first fundamental question is, who is the owner of this service, right? Usually, the ownership lies at a team level. Everybody who is experienced in a war room situation, there are multiple teams involved, right? Let's call DB team, let's call network team, let's call compute team or infra team, right? Now, what we are trying to achieve in the process of reducing that initial friction is helping you by creating automated calls to those respective owners, so that you can save up to a few hours of time to only figure out what to troubleshoot and who would troubleshoot. That is the real deal breaker when it comes to fixing issues in production. The system would automatically generate calls and manage the entire incident management process for you, right? If you have your own structures, if you have your own runbooks, the system can understand that, and next time a similar issue occurs, it can help you with historical context of the error. A simple Slack message that I recently received from Bits SRE was the following. I sent a Slack message to DataDog asking, can you please let me know what has happened? The SRE agent contextualized all the pieces of information and sent me a message. Now this becomes my starting point, right? Now I am contextually aware who's the owner, what is happening. My worry is only to reduce that SLA. My worry is to only ensure why the issue is not getting fixed even after we have a head start now, right? So my issue is only focusing on what matters the most, maybe a bug fix, maybe a restart, maybe adding more CPU, or whatever the common cases could be that you can think of. Now with the SRE, right, how many of us work in a capacity of SREs or leaders in the SRE domain? All right. So you would also understand that RC is not just about understanding what happened today, yesterday, day before yesterday, right? It also needs to have a context of what happened last month. Is it a seasonal thing, right? Is there a pattern associated to this problem? Does it happen on every Saturday? Does it happen only on, let's say, festivities? So that is the whole point of having an SRE AI-based agent to help your team get up to speed faster. We do have the concept of memories, which means the system would automatically understand what happened when the issue occurred, how the issue got fixed. Those kind of key metadata information is something that is passed on to the owner of a particular service in case the same issue occurs. Right? Now you must be wondering, if the same issue has occurred, can't the system fix it? Right? Can't I get some automation on top of it? That's like a very commonsensical question that most of us would have. That is where we also have now the ability to really act on this piece of information to close that loop. Now with closure of loop, as you can see here, if there was a bad code or a newly written code which included a few bugs into the system, DataDog can also identify the code, look at the code, read code, understand that, all right, this block of code needs to be changed now. It can generate that code for you, and from the system itself, you can create a pull request so that it can go and become as part of your regular CI process, or CD process rather. So that is the intent, and this is completely available at the moment as I speak, right? Next up, if it was not a code problem, let's say it was related to infrastructure, right? Let's say it was related to a DB query or a connection pool, size needed to be reset, right? It was a JVM memory leak problem. How do you fix all of those problems? You may have to enter your infrastructure, you may have to enter your services and run some code, run some commands, or do some restart, like day-to-day operations that everybody is aware of. We also have an entire workflow automation piece which can help you design this workflow, which basically means the trigger of the workflow now is the platform itself, right? You're basically identifying your platinum services or grade A services on which you want systems to act naturally with all the data that it has collected and to be able to take these actions independently. That is the state at which observability now is being presented in a more autonomous fashion. There is also action interface where you can create all of these actions, create wrappers around these actions if there are common knowledge actions that you're currently doing, right? In case, let's say, auto scaling. Anybody's doing Kubernetes-based auto scaling? Right? So you're using HPAs, VPAs, and things like those, right? Now, the fundamental point of doing an auto scaling is on a trigger, right? So your auto scaling logic, how many of us perform auto scaling logic on, let's say, a CPU threshold or a memory threshold? Most of us, right? Now, what if we basically change it? One of the charts that I showed you, the checkout error, right? Everybody remembers the checkout error, right? Now, what if the cause for auto scaling could be my latency, right? If there is higher latency, let me scale my systems independently. Not necessarily because of CPU, memory, or any other kind of resource-intensive metric. It could be user-intensive metric. If the page load time is slower than anticipated, please do auto scaling. Right? So that is the intent with which DataDog acts on your systems, and it is able to bring in the value that you deserve and your technology team deserves. And with this, we now have a perfectly running application, right? We now are able to check out, we are now able to make transactions, and thus bringing more revenue into the business. So that is the whole intent of having one single platform to look at various moving pieces of your application stack, infrastructure stack, security stack, CI/CD stack, and everything put together, right? And that is how DataDog AI-Ops is solving the problem at scale, right? We basically start with ingestion across multiple sources of information, as you saw. Distill key information. What is the metadata that is related to a DB query with an APM trace, right? DataDog understands that as part of our configuration. Next up, we understand the ownership of the services that lie with your human teams, right? We can then initiate incident management if required. We can then initiate remediation actions if required, right? It's written with fewer clicks, which means you have the power to either make it autonomous or to act as an intermediate between technology and your infrastructure. So what are the key takeaways? Of course, the root cause of the problem is essentially lies with you, which is the fact that you're looking at 3 or 4 different dashboards. The data in itself can never be all right for a human scale, right? You can never look at data in full capacity by having discrete sources of information. The complex patterns that exist in the data is, of course, needs to be solved by the software, right? I heard a great line by somebody, softwares should manage softwares, right? And that's the intent that we basically have in terms of helping you manage everything that you have, right? Not only just in consolidation, but also by having these multi-cloud, multi-tool approach. You continue to have it, but now you have a single platform that can ease this problem of data spurge and no analytics today. And of course, automation is at the heart of technology today. We want you to do auto-scaling actions. We want you to remediate problems in production in real time without or less human interaction. With that, thank you so much. We have a booth out there. Happy to connect with everyone at the booth to have more conversation around it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Please be with us. May I invite Mr. Manish Panjwani, CTO, Shriram Automall. Sir, please join in and present a small token of appreciation to sir for their time they have given us here today.